My brother faked a deadly illness just to steal my inheritance. But instead of exposing him privately, I gave him a public miracle healing in front of the whole town. Everyone cheered until one shocking twist turned the crowd against him. I whispered this one sentence that made his world collapse. This is my story. I've always been the quiet one in the family, not shy, just observant. My name is Elliot, and I was born in a small riverside town called Ashwick, nestled between forested hills and an ever-whistling train track. My parents, Gregory and Marianne, were well respected. My father ran a furniture business, and my mother was the kind of woman who could solve a neighbor's problems with nothing but a slice of cherry pie and good advice. Then there was my younger brother, Simon. Simon was born with a sparkle in his eye and a knack for getting what he wanted. He could charm the most rigid teacher into raising his grade, con an old man out of his lunch money, always with a guilty return the next day, and cry his way out of trouble like it was second nature. Where I had discipline, Simon had charisma. Where I had principles, Simon had excuses. I won't lie, there was a time I loved that about him. He made life feel like a show, like every day might end with a dramatic punchline or an unexpected win. But as we grew older, Simon's cleverness evolved into something more manipulative, something darker. While I took over my father's business after his retirement, Simon wandered from scheme to scheme, job to job, never quite landing. Then came the inheritance. Dad passed away 2 years ago, and though the loss was like a cavern opening inside me, I had little time to grieve. The will was simple. Everything would be split between Simon and me, but with a caveat: if one of us were incapacitated or unable to manage their share responsibly, the other would become sole custodian of the estate. That clause, I later realized, was the beginning of everything. It started with a phone call one rainy evening. I was closing the shop when my phone buzzed with Simon's name. "Elliot," he gasped. "It's bad, brother." Real bad. The doctors say it might be neurological. Maybe a tumor. I'm scared. I froze. For all his faults, Simon had never cried wolf about his health. He was the kind of guy who ignored coughs and limped on twisted ankles, laughing it off. But now he sounded genuinely frightened. "I'll be there in 20, I said without hesitation. The next few days were a blur. I drove him to Ashwick General. He'd already booked an appointment and had papers in hand. Preliminary scans, doctor's notes, even prescriptions. His hands shook. His voice cracked. I felt a knot in my stomach watching him. My charismatic, irritating, yet beloved brother shrinking before my eyes. He moved into my place after his third appointment. Said the fatigue made it impossible to manage on his own. He slept during the day, moaned through the night. I cooked, cleaned, even read to him. All the while I kept in touch with his doctors, pushing for updates, clarity, anything, but they were vague. Still under review. Unclear MRI results. Further observation needed. It didn't take long before the town heard. Small towns are like that. Whispers become headlines. Simon Marchand fighting for his life. Churchgoers offered prayers. Shopkeepers slipped him treats and notes of encouragement. And me? I started getting looks, pitiful ones. But here's the thing, Simon never looked that sick. He ate heartily when no one was looking. I caught him scrolling on his phone for hours, eyes darting with speed no neurological disorder should allow. Once I came home early and found him up on a ladder fixing the garage light, only to see him back in bed groaning 30 minutes later when I returned from the store. I didn't want to believe it. Not yet. So I started digging. One night, while he snored dramatically, I opened his laptop. I know, invasion of privacy. But I had to know. What I found turned my stomach. Emails to a private clinic, paid in cash. Template doctor's letters downloaded from the dark web. Even a bookmarked article titled, "Faking Illness for Legal Custody, the Loopholes Most Lawyers Miss." It was real. It was all a performance. I sat there in the dim glow of the kitchen, trembling with rage. My brother wasn't dying. He was staging a slow, elaborate con to manipulate the clause in our father's will. And he was winning. I should have confronted him right then, thrown him out, called the police, but I didn't. Instead, I made a decision. I was going to play along, but on my terms. If Simon wanted a performance, I'd give him one. I'd set the stage, build the climax, and end the show with something he could never predict. I was going to give him a miracle. And it was going to be public. When you know someone is lying, but they don't know that you know, they become your puppet. It's a dangerous power to hold, but I'd be lying if I said it didn't give me a certain thrill. From the moment I discovered Simon's con, I stopped being his caretaker and started being his audience. And I was done clapping. I decided not to confront him outright. No, that would only give him a chance to weasel out with more half-truths and crocodile tears. Instead, I fed into the role he had cast for me. The loyal, heartbroken older brother. And to make it believable, I even doubled down. I organized prayer meetings. I asked our local pastor, Reverend Lyle, to visit Simon at home. I invited people from town to encourage him. The more public attention I drew to his supposed condition, the more trapped Simon became in his own lie. It was brilliant. He couldn't back out even if he wanted to. He had to keep pretending. And so he did. I made him a celebrity of suffering. He groaned louder when others were around. His limp exaggerated itself into a near crawl. And yet when he thought no one was watching, he danced around the house with the agility of a gymnast. I once found him playing darts in the garage, singing along to Queen. When he saw me, he threw himself onto the couch and clutched his head like he was having a seizure. "Headache, just a wave. It's getting worse," he whispered dramatically, trying to wipe sweat that wasn't there. I nodded solemnly. "We'll get through this, brother." Inwardly, I laughed. Still, for this plan to work, I needed evidence. Ironclad, irrefutable proof. So I contacted my friend Camille, an old college mate now working in private surveillance. I told her everything. She didn't even hesitate. Within days, she'd installed 2 hidden cameras in the house, one in the hallway and another in the garage. I also gave her access to Simon's computer, and she started backing up all his shady downloads and emails. Within a week, the footage we got was damning. Simon doing push-ups. Simon laughing on a Zoom call with someone named Dr. Holloway, whom Camille discovered was a fake physician operating under a pseudonym. Simon talking about milking this thing until Elliot hands over the estate. My stomach twisted every time I watched the videos, but I kept my face blank around him. Because I had something bigger planned. I'd already reached out to Pastor Lyle about organizing a healing service for Simon. I knew my brother hated religion, always thought it was a crowd control method used by the weak. So when I told him the church wanted to hold a special prayer night just for him, he balked. What? Why? I don't like public spectacles. He mumbled. You don't have to say anything. Just show up. Let people pray over you. It'll mean a lot to them. He hesitated, then grinned that smug grin I knew too well. Actually, yeah, might win us a few sympathy points with the community. Couldn't hurt. Exactly what I wanted him to say. As the service date approached, I went all in. Flyers, announcements, church posters with phrases like, "Believe in miracles, come witness God's power." Simon didn't know it, but he was about to be the star of the biggest drama Ashwick had ever seen. I even told Camille to prepare the live stream equipment. That way the whole town and anyone watching online would bear witness. But 2 days before the service, something unexpected happened. I found a letter in my mail slot, no return address. It read, "You think you're the only one who knows? Someone else is watching. Be careful how far you push him. He's not as harmless as he looks." No signature, no name, just that chilling warning. For the first time since this game began, I felt a sliver of fear. Who sent it? Was someone else spying on Simon? Or on me? Could he have allies I didn't know about? I showed Camille and she ran a fingerprint scan. Nothing came up, but the fact that someone else knew added a new layer of risk to everything. Still, I wasn't backing out. The night before the service, Simon went out. Said he needed to clear his mind. I took the chance to go through his things again. In a locked drawer, I found his updated copy of Dad's will, stamped and ready to file with a legal affidavit stating Simon was no longer mentally competent. The kicker? He forged it with a fake doctor's name. Mine. He signed my name as the physician attesting to his declining state. My hands shook as I held the paper. This wasn't just manipulation anymore. This was criminal fraud, with me as the scapegoat. I called Camille in a panic. "You have everything backed up?" I asked. "All of it. But Elliot, he's moving faster than we thought. You might need to accelerate the plan." "I'll do it tomorrow," I said. "Are you ready?" I paused. I wasn't. But I am now. That night, I didn't sleep. I watched the videos over and over. Every smug laugh, every fake twitch, every lie. This wasn't just about the inheritance anymore. It was about justice. It was about finally putting an end to the manipulation that had ruled my family for too long. And tomorrow, in front of God and half the town, I was going to expose Simon for exactly what he was. A fraud, a liar, and soon, a miracle. They say Sunday mornings in Ashwick are for hymns, quiet prayers, and worn-out Bibles. But that morning was different. The air crackled with anticipation. Word had spread across town like wildfire. Simon Marchand, the sick heir, is receiving healing today. The church was packed by 10. Old ladies in lace hats clutched rosaries. Teenagers came out of curiosity, and front row seats, reserved for Simon, his wheelchair, and a carefully rehearsed performance. Pastor Lyle greeted me at the door. "Elliot, you sure about this?" he asked softly. "More than ever." He nodded, trusting me, unaware of the real storm brewing underneath the sanctuary's stained glass windows. Simon arrived 15 minutes late wearing a beige cardigan and a forced smile. I wheeled him in myself. He winced theatrically every time we hit a bump. People gasped with sympathy. He looked around like a wounded lamb. He was playing his part so well. But I was playing a bigger one. The choir sang. Pastor Lyle preached on healing and restoration. Faith can move mountains, he declared, and today we'll see that mountain crumble. It was time. I walked to the pulpit, my voice steady as I addressed the congregation. My brother Simon has been battling a mysterious illness for months, but God laid something on my heart this week. He wants to heal him today. Not through medicine, not through therapy, but through faith. Applause. A few whispered, Amens. Simon looked confused, but only slightly. I could see him calculating the angle. Play along and claim the healing later, or fake resistance and lose the crowd. He chose the former. I believe, he croaked. If God wants to heal me, I welcome it. The audience erupted. I knelt beside him. Simon, in the name of Jesus Christ, rise and walk. He blinked, hesitated. The audience leaned in. This was the moment, and Simon, forever the actor, slowly rose to his feet. Trembling hands, unsteady legs, like a newborn deer. The crowd roared with joy, tears flowed, people fell to their knees. But I wasn't done. Wait, I said, raising my hand. Don't applaud just yet. There's something else you all need to see. The projector screen behind me flickered to life. Footage rolled. Simon in the garage. Doing push-ups, dancing, the Zoom calls, the forged documents. His laughter as he told someone, by next month, Elliot's handing me the estate. The church fell silent. Gasps followed. Simon's face went pale. Wait, that's out of context. Context? I interrupted. The man who just faked a healing for sympathy has been faking his illness from the start. And while the town prayed and wept, he was laughing at us all, including God. Reverend Lyle stepped forward, stunned. Simon, is this true? You don't know what it's been like, Simon stammered, voice cracking. Dad always chose Elliot. I had nothing. He turned to me, eyes blazing. You think you're so righteous? You think this makes you better? You trapped me. I stepped down from the pulpit, facing him head on. No, Simon. You trapped yourself, and you dragged all of us into it. The room was frozen. Some people cried. Others shook their heads in disgust. Pastor Lyle ordered the service closed early. As the congregation emptied, I stayed behind, watching my brother pace wildly near the altar. He wasn't even pretending anymore. You ruined me, he hissed. No, I said calmly. You did that on your own. I just gave you the stage. You don't understand. That inheritance, it's the only thing I had left. I sighed. I would have shared it with you. I always planned to. But instead of trusting me, you tried to steal it. For the first time, Simon didn't have a retort. Just silence. He left the church without another word. But the story wasn't over. That same afternoon, Camille released all the footage and emails to the estate attorney and the authorities. By Tuesday, Simon was under investigation for fraud and forgery. The doctor he faked? A known scammer with warrants in 2 countries. The papers he filed? All inadmissible. The will? Safely restored to its original legal version, naming me sole heir. But I didn't feel victorious, just relieved. I didn't press charges. I told the police I wanted to let the courts handle it quietly. Simon disappeared from town shortly after, his name whispered like a cautionary tale. The boy who cried sickness. And me? I stayed, rebuilt, donated a portion of the estate to the local hospital, repaired the church roof, created a trust fund in my father's name. Because my legacy wasn't just about proving a liar wrong, it was about honoring a truth. It had been 4 months since the healing service. 4 months since Simon vanished from Ashwick and left a trail of scorched relationships behind him. I hadn't heard a word. Not from him, not from anyone connected to him. And I'll admit, there were days I hoped he'd call. Even if it was to shout or curse me out. At least it would mean he was still my brother underneath all that bitterness. But silence has a way of reshaping your life. The estate was mine now, officially. I thought it would feel like a throne, but it felt more like a responsibility. My father's vineyards, the staff, the old library filled with hand-annotated books. They all needed tending. Just like the people we'd both failed while playing roles we should never have written. One morning, I was helping restore a youth shelter on the edge of town when Camille tapped me on the shoulder, holding her phone. "You need to see this," she said, eyes unreadable. She handed me the screen. It was a YouTube video, low quality, shot on a phone. The title made my breath hitch. Confession of a Fraud. Simon Marchand Speaks. I didn't want to click it. I wasn't ready to reopen that wound, but I did. The video opened on Simon, sitting on a bench at what looked like a rehab center. No fake sickness. No cardigan. Just a thin man with tired eyes and a stubble beard. He looked directly into the camera. If you're watching this, it means you probably already know what I did. My name is Simon Marchand. I faked an illness. I forged documents. I lied to my family, my town, and even to God. I wanted my brother's inheritance because I didn't think I had any value unless I had something to show for it. He paused, swallowed hard. But Elliot was right. I trapped myself. And when he gave me that stage, I thought I'd finally win. But it turns out what he gave me wasn't a trap. It was a mirror. Another pause. I've spent the past 3 months here at the Wellspring Center in Montreal. I checked in the day after I left Ashwick. I've been in therapy. I've been dealing with some things from childhood. Things I never processed. And I've been learning how to stop blaming other people for my own brokenness. He glanced down at his hands. I don't expect forgiveness. Not from Elliot, not from the town. But I wanted to speak the truth, just once, with no mask on. He leaned forward, voice softer now. Elliot, if you're watching this, I know I don't deserve anything from you, but thank you. You didn't humiliate me. You saved me. I just didn't see it then. The video ended. I stared at the screen for a long time. Camille sat beside me, not saying a word. She knew that somewhere in the storm of betrayal and truth, something sacred had been restored. Not the inheritance, not our family name, but Simon's soul. A month later, a letter arrived. No return address. Just a scribbled "from S." Inside was a single sentence on a piece of folded notebook paper. You were always the stronger brother, not because you inherited, but because you never let pain make you cruel. I smiled. For the first time in over a year, I smiled without weight pressing down on my chest. I wrote back, told him I forgave him, told him there was still a room in the house if he ever wanted to visit. He never replied, but I hoped. Ashwick slowly returned to peace. The town started trusting again. Pastor Lyle invited me to speak at the youth conference that fall. I told them the truth, not the flashy version, but the real one, about how healing sometimes comes from confrontation, how grace often wears the face of discipline, and how sometimes the greatest miracle isn't rising from a chair, but falling hard enough to find your knees. I closed the estate to tourists and reopened it as a community center. Free workshops, food drives, even music nights in the vineyard garden. The Marchand name was no longer tied to scandal or sickness, but to service. And every now and then, when the sun set just right over the old stone chapel, I thought of my brother wherever he was, still learning, still healing, and I thanked God. Not because I won, but because the truth won. And in its victory, we both were saved.